James, welcome to the Hammer Podcast.
I appreciate the backstory, though. It's good to hear.
Yeah. What I'll probably do is that little part there is I'll probably put it like at the end as kind of a added footage or whatever because it was good.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, welcome to the Hammer Podcast. I'm glad you're on. I'm glad you want to tell your story. You know, so because like I said, I've had a lot of women come and tell their story. I haven't had any men tell their story, and you're the first one, so I appreciate it.
Definitely.
So, because the abuse just didn't happen with women; it happened with men as well. So,
Right.
so if you, like I said, if you want to start from the beginning, if you want to introduce yourself and just start and say if you want to go with before the home or during the home and after home, whatever, I'll jump in a little bit and ask you some questions. So
definitely feel free to stop me. I talk a lot, so feel free to stop me anytime or ask questions. Yeah, definling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go right ahead. Floor's yours.
Thanks, and thanks for having me too. I appreciate it. I'm hoping this brings more guys to be open to talk about this stuff and what went on, because I know a lot of boys went to schools like this. But my name is James Griffey. Living right now in Southern California. It's where I was born and raised. I was sent to Agape boarding school in Stockton, Missouri from 1998, and I graduated in 2001. I went there as a sophomore, stayed till I graduated, and then actually stayed a year and worked on staff at the school before I came back home to Southern California. But it's it's crazy talking, like, I don't talk about this kind of stuff with anyone in my normal day-to-day life. I mean, people I work with, everything like that. Like, no one, when I say I went to all boys boarding school, like, no one thinks nothing of it. No one even asks questions about it. They're just like, oh, okay, that's it. But it was I mean, I guess going back, like, I was what you'd consider a troubled teen. I mean, shoot, might as well share everything. Like when I was when I was a kid, like 3 years old, basically my parents were separated, and then so my mom was living with her parents, my grandparents, and she had epilepsy, and so I was about three and a half, and her and I were just taking a nap, and she had a seizure and suffocated herself, and and then I slept through the whole thing, and then when I woke up, like, the ambulance already came and took her away, and like she was, DOA, dead on arrival. So thankfully I wasn't awake for that. I just know my mom was just gone at one point, and then my grandparents took me in. Like, they kept taking care of me for maybe like 6 months or so, but it was kind of actually initially my dad took me in, sorry, but then a week later he literally did the ring the doorbell, left me on my grandparents' front porch, and like drove off type thing. I don't. These are all stories. I don't remember it. But then my grandparents tried to raise me for a little bit, and then that didn't work out so well. Just older people trying to raise a young kid was tough. So then my mom's brother and his wife stepped in and went to the courts and got guardianship of me. So they brought me into their home. I was the youngest of the 4 kids there. And it was a very, very, what I thought at the time was strict Christian. At the time, I didn't know what, independent fundamental Baptist was. They were just strict Christians, only listening to like Disney radio, only watching Disney TV, like no rock music, no nothing like that.
That's insane.
I can't tell you how many times I get in trouble because I had a cassette player in my room, and I'd be listening to, like, hear a local station like Kiss FM or Power 106 that were playing like pop music, and I'd listen to it and forget to change the station back, and my aunt would come in and find me listening to it, and I get spanked for it, and but it was interesting, like, being raised in that home. Like, they did the best that they could. As I talk through this thing, I'm talking about my family and I'm sharing things about, but I love them to death. I have a great relationship with them, and they did the best that they knew how to do with what they had at the time. you know.
Okay.
But
Mm-hmm.
but in that home, there was no love really being shown. There's no hugging. There was no anyone saying I love you. It was just really just strictly following the rules. And if you break the rules, you're punished. And
Right.
so at a young age, I learned to get attention, what I confused as love, because as an adult, I wanted your attention. I wanted like I wanted you to pay attention to me. So if I did something wrong and I got punished, I took that as love. I was getting your attention. I was getting your time.
Right.
You're full when you're spanking me over the kitchen table, like I'm getting your full undivided attention. And I was like,
Yeah.
uh, so I was just misbehaving. I was doing things wrong. Around, I think it was seventh grade. My aunt had a nervous breakdown. She blamed it on me. There was things happening in the family, but she blamed it on me, so she kicked me out. I moved back in with my grandma. Um, Lived with, and since then my grandpa had died, so it was just my grandma, living with her for a while. And then my other aunt and uncle, it's my mom's sister and her husband said, okay, we'll take him in. And so this was around my eighth grade going into ninth grade. I moved in with them, but by this time I was misbehaving, doing a lot of things wrong, causing a lot of issues in the family. Still doing what I thought was best to get love from them, right?
Right.
But
Okay.
obviously, from a authoritative position, I was a troubled kid. I was smoking weed. I was getting bad grades at school, misbehaving at school, getting suspended, all these things, So, um, my family all came together and said we need to do something, and they had gone to the pastor at their church, and the pastor at their church had somehow, some way known about Agape boarding school. So they warned me. They said, "Hey, we're going to send you to this school in Missouri if you don't straighten up." Well, I didn't believe them. They had the pamphlet on the kitchen counter and all that stuff.
Right.
I didn't believe them. I thought it was just a scare tactic. Um,
Right.
and then I just kept misbehaving, doing my thing, and then eventually they were like, okay, we'll pack your bags. It was a Friday. I believe it was a Friday, and they're like, pack your bags. We're
Right.
leaving tomorrow. I'm
What
like,
what year was this?
this was 98.
98. Okay.
98, yeah, 98. And so, yeah, they're
Did
like, go ahead.
was there a fee involved?
I don't know the financials behind it. I know it took both my aunt and uncles and my grandma being able to pay for it. I don't know at the time I didn't know what the financials were. I think after I got out of school and I talked to them, oh my gosh, I want to say it was like maybe like 1,500 a month,
Ouch.
if not more. I thought I could have swore it was a few grand, but I know it was well over 1,000. I know for a fact that much, but I can even ask my aunt and uncle and find out what they were paying. But I know it took all three of them to pay for it. It took my both aunt and uncles both had good money coming in, and my grandma had good money too. It took all three of them putting their money together to pay for me to be there.
Man.
And so it's yeah.
It might as well just flushed it down the toilet.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I said earlier, like they thought they were doing what's best, is because they when you're involved in a religion, you look up to the man of God within that
Right. Right.
institution, and when they say, hey, this is what you do with the troubled kid, you I'm just baffled. Now that I'm an adult, I'm baffled that that's the advice that they gave. The advice wasn't sit down, wasn't get to know, find out what's going on. It wasn't to try to get through to him. It wasn't none of that. Their solution was ship him off to this religious institution out in the middle of nowhere, and
Yeah.
basically let God deal with them. Like, what? Like,
Yeah.
that makes no sense. But once again, they were influenced by the pastor. They did what they felt was best in God's eyes. So,
Yeah. We'll take him. We'll take him. Trust me. We'll take him.
right?
You know what they mean by trust me. You've probably
Yeah,
heard that before.
yes. It's so. Of course, they'll take him.
Yeah.
It's yeah. It's
Actually, it's not we'll take you. We'll take your money,
yes.
basically. I mean, how did they I mean, was it a nice place?
The
I
boarding
mean,
school.
Yes. Was it, did it have like a nice landscape? Were the rooms really nice? The money's got to be going somewhere instead of their pockets.
No, the money was going to rebuilding the school. The school had a fire about, I don't know how many months before I got there. There was a big fire that burned down the chapel and burned down a bunch of stuff. So
Right.
when I got there, it was a wreck. But even then, when they dropped me off, when I flew out there with my family, we got there. When they dropped me off to the Agape staff members for them to take me, we weren't
Right.
even at the school. We were at a local, and there's a golf course I think in Stockton somewhere, Missouri, and we drove up there to the golf course. And as we drove up, there was about 100 boys working this golf course and like pulling reeds out of the golf course, and find out later it's a golf course that a lot of the staff members go to and golf at. So I don't know if the golf course was paying the boarding school to have
Yeah.
the boys work there.
Cheap labor.
Yeah.
Kind of
This,
reminds me of kind of reminds me of the Shawshank Redemption, you know?
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Like
When
it's like
when you're outbidding everybody else because you have the lowest price because they're, the prisoners.
yep, 100%. It's and I so we did a lot. Well, I can get into that later. There was a lot of work we did at the school, but and I pull up and we get out and they introduced me to the staff members, and I'm still thinking this is a whole scare tactic, right?
Right.
And the staff members yell out some kid's name, toward the boys, and all of a sudden here comes this boy running over, and the staff member says to me, he's like, "Hey, this guy's your buddy. We'll explain it later, but just go with him
Right.
and do what he tells you to do." And this other boy's like, they told the other boy, "Go put him to work." I'm like, okay, cool. So, you know what? I was like, I'm gonna show my family that this doesn't phase me. I'm not phased by this. Like they're not scaring me, nothing like that. So I go
Right.
with this kid and I start getting in there with everyone else. They're pulling, I'm in nice jeans and a shirt, but I don't care. I'm just pulling reeds out, getting all muddy. And I go to turn around to show my aunt and uncle, like, like you're not phasing me.
Yeah.
And they're already in their car driving off.
Wow, we got rid of him. Shoo, gone.
There was no goodbye. There was no nothing. And I find out
Wow.
staff members, they encourage them not to say goodbye, not to like, because that's when, like the boy might convince them to like not leave them there or whatever. So that's how they separate. That's how they leave the kids,
Right.
normally the staff will separate the kid from the parent, and then have the parents leave and not have a goodbye or nothing like that. Yeah. So, and like all the boys start laughing at me. I'm like my family, they're gone. They're all laughing. They're like, "You're here now. You're not going anywhere. Man. Like, you're stuck."
Yeah.
It was just like, yeah.
Wow. Talk about feeling this small, huh?
Yeah. I went from feeling like my pride was like so big it couldn't even fit in my own head. To like, oh wow, they really did leave me here.
Man. So, so after all that,
Yeah.
they gave you your room, your work detail, and basically just started bossing you around, huh?
Yeah. Because
Okay, now they're gone.
yeah.
We're in charge now, so
Now
you're
we're in
yeah.
charge. But
Yeah.
there was no briefing or no nothing. No, like we're
Right.
leaving you with these other people. We're gonna leave, and you're gonna be here. Like there's nothing I kept thinking they're gonna come back later that day and get me. Like I had no. They didn't frame it at all. You know how you frame a conversation? They didn't frame the
Right.
situation at all for me.
Huh.
And so I'm just there, and they load me into the van to leave the golf course with all the other boys, and they're putting me in the middle seat and the staff are telling everyone to watch me, and I'm like, what? Like what? Because I guess they're thinking I could run, because typically when you're a new kid, you're not allowed off campus at all for the first few months, period. So the fact that my first day there was on a work duty off campus, like I was a flight risk right off the bat. So
Right.
they're putting me in the back of the van with guys next to me watching me, and the thought of running never even entered my mind, but they were so worried about it, And we drive back to the school, and then they do the intake where they basically, bring you up into the office. They go through all of your luggage, so all the stuff I packed and everything. They're going through like, this isn't allowed here. This isn't allowed here. They have you strip down your underwear to make sure you're not carrying any contraband or anything in there. And and then they give you clothes to wear, and these clothes have been worn by God knows how many kids before you. There's paint stains on them. They smell, and you're identified by the color of your shirt.
Right.
So when you started there, I think when I started there was yellow shirts, but they eventually moved into orange shirts as were the new kids, and I was told that I need my buddy, that kid that they matched me up with was my buddy, and I had to be within 5 feet of him at all times. If I wasn't within 5 feet of him, the other 100-something kids at that school had the right to tackle me to the ground because I was running away. So, and this, you said I can cuss on this. This kid was an asshole. You have to be in front of him. You can't just be next to him walking. You have to be in front of him while you're walking. And he would be walking one direction, telling me we're going to the dining hall, and we're walking, and then he would just stop and turn around and start walking the other way, and he'd be like, "My buddy's running," and then all the kids were trying to attack me, and it was like, you're basically when you get to that school, they're giving your control and your everything over to another pubescent teenage boy, that's gone through the same shit you went through, but they
want to make you suffer.
They really do, because they suffered when they went through it, and there's a weird satisfaction that everyone gets there, staff and student alike that's been there, this weird sadistic fucked up satisfaction that you get from watching these new kids suffer just because it's not you. Like, you're not the butt of the jokes, you're not getting the physical restraintment, you're not getting any of that, and you're just glad it's not you, and you're kind of get the enjoyment out of, and it's sad because you're like, I get where he's coming from, because eventually I was a buddy. I was never doing that to my buddies. I was always the nice guy, but it was interesting. So
basically you were surrounded by assholes.
Yeah, really. Yeah, exactly. Like you have no power.
Yeah.
Your power of decision of everything is completely removed when you go to the bathroom, when you when you wake up, when you go, everything is decided for you. But you'll find this interesting. My first night there, push-ups was the discipline. So if you did something wrong, they say 25 push-ups, and you have to drop and do them right now. Well, I was a skinny little kid, never worked out in my life, 15 years old. So my buddy was giving me, my asshole buddy was giving me push-ups the first night in the dorm. I'm trying to do them, and my arms collapse, and I'm like, crap. And he's like, don't say that. You can't say that word here. And he's like, I was like, I'll do more push-ups. You got 25 more. And I'm like, okay. Wow. My arms couldn't do them. So then he brings me up to the front of the dorms, to the staff member that's running the dorms, and he says, this is the thing, they believe him over me. They said my buddy won't do push-ups. It's not that I wouldn't do push-ups. I could. I literally, my arms are collapsing. And so the staff member's like, okay, leave him with me, go do push-ups. And now this is this ripped, 20-something-year-old, maybe early 30-year-old, military-looking dude, 3 times my size, muscles, works out, everything. He's like, do push-ups. And I'm like, okay. I get down, I was like, I'll try. And I'm doing them, and my arms collapse again. I'm like, gosh dang it. And he gets in my face. He's like, don't say that. You're using God's name in vain. Don't say gosh. Don't ever say that again. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, sorry about that. And I go to do push-ups again, and I collapse again. My arms are just so tired. It's been a long day. I collapse. I'm like, gosh, oh shit, sorry. And I look up at the guy. This guy, the staff member, pounces on me, throws me on my back, starts punching me in the face, starts headbutting me, and the whole time he's saying, "Don't say God's name in vain. I told you, I warned you." And he's hitting me. It takes 3 staff members to get him off of me finally. And my buddy comes in, they're like, "Come get him, Garrett, come get him." And my buddy comes and gets me, takes me down the bathroom. My nose is bleeding, forehead's bleeding, as a 15-year-old kid. And I'm like, I just start crying as I look in the mirror, looking at myself, realizing this is it, and that was my first night there.
That's assault.
Yeah,
basically.
Right. Yeah. An adult, no matter what period, but it's still the legalities of an adult doing that to a child, because standing in the courtroom, mister, why did you do that? Oh, he said God, use God's name in vain. So I threw him on, and that same staff member, he ran my dormitory,
Oh.
and so he would constantly threaten with knocking. He didn't like my teeth. Like, I know it sounds silly, but he didn't like my two front teeth because I have big front teeth. So he called me, said I have beaver teeth. So when something was happening in the dorm, everyone was kind of laughing about it, and he saw me smiling or whatever, he would coming up with his fist up, like, put those teeth away. I'm gonna knock out those teeth if you keep smiling. Like, put them away. And like this was constant. Like, and it was just, yeah. So he already beat me up once, and it was a constant reminder of that. And but to go back to answer your question about the dorms and the grounds there, the dorms consisted of, now they've changed it because us kids that were there, we built like new buildings and everything for them. But when we were there, it was 4 of these really shitty mobile homes that they had tore down the wall. They have connected them all together and then tore down the front of the wall so you can connect to the front.
Right.
And then back were the showers, and then there was like maybe like 24 bunk beds in there or something like that, in each dorm. And that was our dorms, like it was. And like the beds were these old metal beds that creaked, and this, and the mattresses, like you could be sleeping on a mattress that some other kid that had a wetting the bed problem had before you, and there's stains all on it, and it was like you got, yeah, it was disgusting.
Oh,
Yep, 4 minutes to shower, a minute to dry off. I think you were given 3 minutes. I think it was either 3 or 4 minutes to take a shit.
Really?
Yeah, they literally timed you going to the bathroom to.
God damn.
Yeah, if you're in there for too long, like they're opening the curtain, like what are you doing in here? Like, get out, like, man, I'm pooping. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, well, and it's like the thing is, you had to stop. If you were going to be in there for more than 4 minutes, you had to stop in the middle of what you're doing, mid shit, come out of and then go back in for another 4 minutes. You couldn't just sit in there for longer.
Wow, that's unbelievable, man.
I'm telling you. Yeah, it's crazy, but they do all of this, and we haven't gotten to the religious side, but all of this is just to shake up your reality, to shake up everything, anything you're used to, anything you're comfortable doing. You're wearing the clothes they want. You're doing everything that they want, and it's to completely just break you down. Like it.
Yeah, they're basically God there.
They are. They really are. They're
complete,
the hand of God.
Complete control.
Yes.
Now, I wanted to ask you about women. Did they ever say, if there's any girls around, turn your face, don't look at them?
That was the rule. Like you could not talk to the women. You could not look at the women. You could not. The only thing you could do is, like, sometimes the staff girls were serving you food at one of the meals, so you could say thank you, ma'am. Or if you're a girl walking through the hallway, like, so you have 200 teenage boys there, all in the all hanging out in like the I don't know, the rec room, whatever. And if a girl comes walking through, you got to say, someone screams out "lady coming through," and all the boys you have to like move out of the way, like parting of the Red Sea, move out of their way, and then someone has to open the door for them to leave. But you can't talk to them. You can't, nothing like that. It's ironic you bring that up, because when I was there was this like maybe like 9 or 10-year-old kid that got there, and he was a problem kid. He was constantly being reprimanded. Like, he just wouldn't conform. We don't know if there's something wrong with his head, the way that he thought, because he was always in trouble, like constantly in trouble. And one of the punishments they have there besides push-ups is they call it standing on the wall. So what you have to do is you have to stand with your nose touching the wall at attention, with your hands behind your back, and just stand there. You can't look off the wall. You can't do anything. You just stand there for hours at a time with your nose on the wall. And if we were outside, say we all go outside and everyone's outside playing basketball or something like that, then those same kids have to stand with their nose on the basketball pole. So this kid, right, that's misbehaving, he just something's not right in his head. Like, I don't know what it is, but something's just not right. He's he's on this basketball pole with his nose, and he's supposed to be standing there. Well, one of the main staff members' daughters, Brian Clemenson's daughter, comes walking by. She's about the same age as this little boy, right?
Yeah.
He takes his head off the pole and turns to her and just says, "Hi, ma'am." Oh, no, I think he said, "Hi, ma'am. How are you doing today?" And that's it. And she knows not to talk back. She doesn't say anything back. She just goes, and she ends up telling her dad. Well, since this kid's not keeping and the brother, his name brother Brian Clemson. Brian Clemson comes back and is just furious, yelling at this kid, telling him to keep his head on the pole. Takes duct tape, and duct tapes this kid's head to a pole. Literally wraps it around his head, around a metal pole, so his face is in a pole, and just leaves him there. And this kid's screaming and crying, and everyone's like, "What the hell's going on?" Like, no one's doing, all the staff are letting it happen. None of us kids can do anything about it, and they just that's it. And he's like, "I'll teach you to keep your head on the pole. Don't talk to my daughter," and this and that. And so, and then we had to go down to the dorms to go get ready. I still remember this yesterday, right? This has been over 20 years now. And we go down to the dorms and we leave this kid on the basketball court with his head duct taped to the pole, which you never do. You never leave a kid unattended because they might run. But they knew he wasn't going anywhere, and he's just trying to get himself off this pole, his head's taped there, and they just leave him, And then they come back and they finally take him off, cut off the tape. It had to hurt coming off his hair. I don't even know how they do that. And then they end up bringing him down to the dorms. And then you could just hear Brother Brian screaming at this kid. I was in another dorm. Brian screaming at this kid, throwing him around, saying, "Don't you ever talk to my daughters again. Don't you ever look at them." And he's just throwing this kid around in this, literally, he just picking up and throwing him. All because this kid said one little thing to his daughter, and there's nothing that can be done that.
Right.
It is, and this is like I said, I think 9 or 10-year-old kid.
Huh. Wow.
And, yeah, and that was the norm. You just, that stuff would happen there, and you just. But yeah, I'm sorry. I always have a long story.
That's all right. That's all right. That's fine. That's fine. So basically, Agape was it was a boys' home, but it was a girls' home too. They were in a separate area.
No, those were the staff daughters. The only girls that were there.
Oh, okay. Staff.
Yeah, so the staff members that were there had daughters that were there. And so the Amanda they had on your podcast.
Yes.
So Amanda was a staff daughter that was there. She was this little girl when I was there, but so her parents were working there, and then she was one of the kids there. And so, and you just know better than to look at the women, talk to the women, or anything, or any of the girls, any of that stuff. Right. But besides that, there was no girls there. It was all boys.
Man.
But yeah, it's
something else. So, did you have to do Bible memorization and all that stuff?
Every morning. I'm sorry.
The King James Bible, right?
Yes,
the official King James Bible.
100%, because that's the most accurate thing to the original Bible, supposedly. Yeah. Because I actually remember going there with when I got sent there, my family gave me, because we were Christian, not fundamental independent Baptist, so we had an NIV, New International Version of the Bible, and that was in my stuff when I got there, and they confiscated it and they threw it out. Oh, this isn't the real Bible. Yeah. So they just threw it out, But yeah, so every morning we had 30 minutes of Bible reading, right? On Monday, Tuesday, and we also had verses that we had to memorize that were attached to our schooling that we did. Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, we had an hour to an hour and a half chapel service at night. Wednesday night, we had a church service. Sunday morning, we had Sunday school. Then we had Sunday church service. And then Sunday night, we had another church service. So it was
And all that time, you're never going to get back.
No.
What a waste of time.
Yeah, I know.
It was a complete waste of time.
But they do that because they want you to conform. If you go to that school, and there were kids that did this. They were kids that said, "No, I don't believe in God. I'm not going to get saved by Jesus. I'm not going to do that." And they made those kids' lives a living hell. You were not you were stuck on new kid status. Like if you were good, you accepted Jesus, you started like becoming like obeying the rules and stuff. Like you got moved off of what's called new kid status, where you didn't have to have a buddy, like I
Right.
mentioned initially. So you can be walking around on your own without someone being within 5 feet of you. But if you didn't accept Jesus and you didn't, believe in God and stuff, you were stuck on new kid status. They were making your life a living hell. Some kids were put on like on the wall eating salad only as on their meals because like they were just like they took that as them rebelling. They're like, well, God's the natural way. Going to heaven and Jesus is a natural way of things. So you're rebelling against all this stuff. So if you're not going to conform, we're going to make your life a living hell. And some kids would
Yeah.
literally just accept Jesus as their savior just to end
Yeah.
the stuff. And it would happen miraculously. All of a sudden they're moved off new kid status. They're not like they're not in trouble.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
It's a miracle. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's God, it's Jesus, like they've been saved, they're a better like now their sins have been washed away, right? And now they're a
Yeah.
new person, and they treated you accordingly to that,
Oh yeah.
And even if you went and screwed up again, say I went and I talked to a staff member daughter and I got caught cussing or whatever, and I
Right.
got in major trouble, you just go forward at church and get baptized again and ask Jesus to save you and say the first time didn't count, and next thing you know, they forgive you and you're washed away and everything's great again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a joke.
yeah,
Um, a lot of in the girls' homes, same thing happened. A lot of them would just say that they accepted Jesus just to, get the higher status, or they weren't
yep,
screwed with.
yeah,
So it happens. But the thing is, most of those girls, um, I've known a few that have come out of the Rebecca home that um, some were true believers. Some were
yep,
really brainwashed, into
yep,
believe because they had been in the Baptist religion their whole life because they were born
right,
into it, right?
right,
Then you
right,
have some, like you said, would just accept just to keep from being beaten, and some
yeah,
would probably do it because for a while because they think that maybe there's something about it. But most of them, well, I would say most of them, some of them, they ended up becoming drug addicts and
yeah,
prostitutes, and
yeah.
so it didn't help them.
No,
No,
it was just a means of getting through the system that was there. Like it
sure,
like I'm for me personally, like I had a very rough start there, like with my buddy and everything that went on with him. Like you could talk to kids that were there during the same time I was there, and like they're like, dude, we feel sorry for you, man. Like you had it rough because of how my buddy was. Like we called it a power tripper. Like he let the power of like having someone else's life in his hands, and
yeah,
like authoritative position go to his head, and he treated me like shit. Like not being a little pussy or nothing like that, but he really did, and
yeah.
and I remember the day where they finally took me off new kid status, where I didn't have to have Buddy in again anymore. And like, I was still traumatized by it. I would see him walking around, and my heart would just start pounding. Like, but I forget where I was going with that. But where was I going with that? Shoot. Sorry, I'm like,
That's okay.
um,
So how was the food?
the
Was it good?
food. That's the thing I was thinking about the other day. Someone asked, like, is it always bad? The food was amazing. Like
Really?
they fed us really good there. Like the lady in charge of the food was ma'am. She was the owner, like Jim Clemison, I think it was his name, the owner of the school. His
Yeah.
wife, like she's one that did the manage the kitchen and stuff like that for the most part. And we ate good. I think Monday mornings was like pancake day, where they make these massive pancakes with like different fillings in them and like
Yeah.
pizza. They every Sunday they would grill burgers for. They fed us
Wow.
really good there. Like I'll be honest with you, like the food was great. Like that was something you look forward to was eating.
Right.
It it's weird though because it wasn't all bad. Like I say like I'm rehashing a lot of the negativity and a lot of the bad things that did go on there that shouldn't
Yeah.
have happened. But then there was a lot, like the food was good. Like I said, they did feed as long as you didn't get in trouble. Because if you got in
Right.
trouble, like I was telling you, that one kid, like
Eat the
that
salad. Yeah.
punishment, you're on a salad diet, yeah, until you shape up.
Yeah.
But um,
What about movies? Did you get a chance to watch movies?
We would have sometimes like movie times, but like we'd watch like they'd be like G or PG, and they would have already been viewed by the staff members and approved. You know,
Yeah.
there'd be sometimes where something snuck through, and like they would just stop the movie immediately and be like, "Sorry about that." Like that. Like we're going to get rid of
Right.
this. But the thing is that they had double standards there. They had
Yeah.
these standards for us as students, and they made it seem like the staff members that worked there had the same standards in their home as far as like the rules and regulations.
No.
No,
No.
no, the
No.
movie they're watching when I became a staff member there, and I find out that the staff kids are listening to rock music and they're watching rated R movies in their homes and all this other stuff, and I'm like, I felt so betrayed because I was so. By the time I graduated there, like I was a preacher boy, like I was the highest level of a student, uh, like that you can get. I was a junior staff member, like that was, and like I was preaching, I was doing all these things, and then when
Right.
I became a staff and I found out that it was all a flipping lie, it was just being
Yeah.
used to keep the kids in check and like to keep us down. I
It was all
was,
about it was all about making money. All
it,
about making money. That's what it
yeah,
was.
it really is. It's crazy. And that's another thing too. Like, speaking of money, is like how much they paid us on staff. Like when you graduated, became a staff member, a single staff member. Um, it was we were allowed. We were given. I think it was every other week we were given a half day off. So we're given like 4 hours to do what we wanted every other week. I think it was, and I want to say it was either. I think we got paid $300 a month. So, and yeah, but mind you, like they were living the life. They had
Oh yeah.
all this money to yeah.
I'm sure they had some really nice. How many boys were there? Do you remember? At
I
one
think
time, at any
I
given time.
I think it got up to around 200, a little over 200, and most of them were from Southern California, ironically enough.
Right.
Which now that you're talking about money, I never put that together,
Yeah.
but like
So when you think about it, 200 kids, 1,000 to 1,500 apiece.
yep, a month.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're raking in the money, man. They're raking
yeah,
in the money,
and
tax free.
so much of their stuff was donated too by like they had all this
Yeah,
like food, the food would get donated, like the like building materials to rebuild stuff, like like they're I mean I'm sure they're paying for it a lot too, but there also were all these donations, like some random business somewhere in Missouri would want to donate something to us, so they would pull up in these vehicles and we would
sure,
just
sure.
unloading all stuff, but
It's the way of saying, I gave to this
yeah,
ministry.
these
What?
troubled boys.
Yes, yes. So please come to my place and buy my stuff.
Yeah,
It's
like
just another way of advertising.
yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. And that it's interesting too. Like we weren't allowed to talk about what went on there at the school. Like, like you had to get to a certain level within the school before they let you go off of campus and interact with people that weren't part of the school. Like to, do a work detail at someone's property or something, because they had to know that you weren't going to say anything. But
Right.
I'm sure you've heard this before. Like all of our letters that we had, we write home to our parents. Every letter was read by the staff members before it was sent out,
Oh yeah.
and and every phone call was listened to, and every time when our family would come to visit us, um, they would tell our families, look, they're going to try to get you to take them home. They're going to make up all these lies. And all this stuff about happening here, and they're abusing me, and they're doing all these terrible things, you know, just to get you to take them home.
Right.
Don't listen to them. Let us know if they're saying those things, like let us know. And so they basically would turn your family on you and like not allow you to speak out to the outside world of what was happening there. It's crazy. Like you're allowed when you're there, like you're allowed to visit from your family every 3 months. So when you first get there, you're allowed a 3 month visit where at 3 months, your family comes on campus and visits you.
In the presence of a staff member.
Yes, and presence in the dining room, in the presence of a staff member there,
Yeah.
like 6 months visit, you're allowed to go off campus with your family and then you'd be back, before nighttime. nine
Right.
month visit is you can be overnight off campus on a visit. 1 year, you're able to go home and visit and then come back. You
Right.
know, um, for me personally, I was actually there 2 years before I even saw my family. Like that, just I don't know why. They say it was financial decision or finance. They're paying so much for me to be at the school. They couldn't afford to fly out and come see me. And eventually, after 2 years, they had put enough money aside to fly me back home to visit with I was able to do a 2-week home visit. So I was able to go back to California from being at the school for 2 weeks and be with my family. Talk about a
Hmm.
culture shock. And
Yeah.
before going back,
Oh,
and
oh yeah, definitely California.
yeah, exactly. I I remember like we went to this for 1 week of the 2 weeks I was home. We went to this Christian camp at this it's called Catalina Island. It's right off the coast of like Long Beach in California, and we used to go there as kids. And I went with my family during this visit for 1 week to this Christian camp with them again. And I remember being at this camp, and like that was my last week before I went back to the boarding school. And I remember walking up. You can do this hike up to see this cross on top of this cliff that overlooked the ocean. You know, this big old rock cliff.
Okay.
Know? And I remember walking up, and I stood, I say an hour, maybe 2 hours at the edge of that cliff, like debating on throwing myself off this cliff, not exaggerating, to kill myself, just so I didn't have to go back to this boarding school. But the only thing that kept me from killing myself is I believed if I killed myself, I'd go to hell. And I was like, okay, is going back to the boarding school or going to hell worse?
Yeah.
And that was a debate I had for about 2 hours. It's like, okay, no, I don't want to go to hell by killing myself, even though I was a saved Christian. I'm going to go back to the boarding school, you know? But
Mm.
yeah, man, it's so crazy talking about this stuff after, like I said, 37. So it's 20 something years, like talking about it and like
Yeah.
it's and having it be so real, like the emotions and everything, the being left there by your family, the feeling of like complete disconnect, having like all that stuff, like that. It's yeah, it's just
Well,
crazy. Okay, yeah,
after all, after the 2 years and all that stuff, you became a staff member. After you finally got out of that home altogether,
yeah.
um, did you seek any type of counseling or anything like that to kind of unwash the brain, basically?
No, because
No.
when you're at the school, like they talk about the real world, and
Yeah.
like that's where to me it gets kind of cultish because the real world is like the devil,
Oh
rock
yeah.
music, girls wearing pants, girls showing their ankles. That's all a sin. That's all the devil trying to. They get you so afraid of the real world that the devil is out there waiting to get you at every corner. You
Yeah.
know that, and you're safe here at the school, like type of thing. And so when I came back to reality, one, I tried to find a church. You know, when I moved, I came back to California after I stayed a year on staff. Now, me being on staff there, like that was another thing. Like I eventually decided to leave because I was like I wasn't seeing eye to eye with them, like as the way they were doing things. I was reading the same Bible they were reading, and in the Bible, like I'm not religious by any means nowadays, but back then when I was reading the Bible, it was like it was talking about this God of love. You know, God loves us. God
Right.
love, not this condemning, angry man up above that's just waiting for us to fuck up so he can ruin our lives, like the way that they talked about it. So when I was
Right.
preaching, when I was talking with the kids, with everything, I started showing those kids that I started showing them like genuine love and care and concern.
Oh,
And
that's no. That's not allowed.
yeah, they
That's not
took me in the
allowed.
office and they talked with me and they told me you can't be doing that here. And I'm like, but your Bible that you told me to read and study says this and this and this and this. And I started bucking the system as a staff member. And eventually I got to the point where I'm just like, I'm leaving. And like kids, like I still have a photo of one of the boys because I was in the little boys dorm when I was there. Like it's called the Bucky Tucker dorm. It was kids under I think like age 14 or something that were in
Wow.
the dorm that I was helping to oversee. And I developed like these were like my little brothers, like to
Yeah.
me. And I remember like one of the kids when they announced I was leaving at one of the chapels, like he just came like he was probably like 9 or 10. He came up to me and was just crying and screaming like don't go because none of the other staff members like cared. None of the other staff members like gave two shits about these kids really and like treated them well at all, and like they kept like I was one staff and I was leaving, so it was very emotional and hard to leave because I felt like I was leaving them in the hands of these terrible people, but I had to get out of there.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I came back to California, I tried to find a church to get into, but ironically enough, I remember going to different churches like Calvary Chapel and doing this. And I remember sitting there and like, I'm like, why is the offering plate just like there was one church service where they passed the offering plate around 3 times saying they wanted to improve the church and God will give you money and give us your money and God will provide for you and this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what is going on here? Like, that doesn't seem right, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, the transition back into reality after leaving that place, not having any support system whatsoever to come back to, no social media really to reach out or nothing like that. Like, it was tough. Like, it
Yeah.
was, for a while there, I got involved with like making bad decisions and the wrong
Right.
crowd and like drugs and partying and was suicidal. Like, I just didn't know what to do with my life. Like, um, depressed, everything, you know, and there was nothing, no one to turn to. Because the thing is that, like I told you, they turn your family on you.
Right.
They cause this dissension where I couldn't go to my family and tell them. It was I don't even know how many years after that I finally told my I was talking to my family, and I told my one cousin, it's like a brother to me, about some of the stuff that happened there, and he's like, "What?" He's like, I knew it. I was telling my family that this can't be good for you. I knew it." He's like, "Come here, come tell mom and dad, my aunt and uncle." He's like, "Tell them." And I'm like, "Oh well," and even then I still didn't want to tell them because I didn't think they'd believe me, you know. And I was like, "Well, when I was there, like this happened my first night with them getting beat up, and then this and that," and they're like, "It did." Like, we never heard about that. They said you were doing, every time we talked to them, they said you were doing great and you were doing fine and everything was good. I'm like, no. And I just shared everything with them, and my family
Right.
felt terrible. They're like,
Terrible.
we paid all this money for you to go through that? Like, really? Like, we wanted you to get straightened out, but we don't want that to happen to you. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's crazy.
So one thing I want to touch up on, it's probably kind of more of a sensitive nature. Um, was Let me give you a little bit of backstory.
Yeah.
I had one girl that I interviewed. I think it was a Bethesda home, and like I said, it was mostly male staff, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of those older guys, teen girls,
That's
shit
not a good
happens,
combination.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. But she said, I think it may have been Bethesda, but anyway, she said that before the lights were out, a staff member would come up to the girls and have them raise their fingers in the air, and
What?
they would smell them to see if they had played with themselves.
Oh
Okay.
my God. What?
Yes. Yes. I believe it was a Bethesda home. And Cindy, I think her name was Cindy that said that. Yeah, they would make them raise their hands in the air and they would smell them to see if they played with themselves. Now that's, first of all, that's fucking disgusting for one thing.
And humiliating as hell.
Yes, humiliating.
And
It's,
what if someone did? What if one of the girls
yeah,
did? What then?
yeah.
I'm assuming they publicly humiliated them, right, or something,
I'm not sure, but and like you were saying, you had to take the showers, with a staff member there, you
right? But
know.
at least there was a curtain. Like, that was
Yeah,
my biggest fear when I got to this school was that I thought it was going to be a group shower, like with
right.
everyone in there type of thing. And when I got, like, I can't tell you the relief that I got when I went and it was individual showers with a
Right,
curtain and you're able to, but at the same time, to your point, like when we wake up in the morning and the lights would come on, you would have to get out of bed and stand at attention, right?
yeah.
And you're, I mean, as a pubescent boy, like you're having dreams, you're waking up, like, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
and I can't tell you how many times like we're all standing there at attention
With
and like
hard-ons,
yeah,
hard-ons up.
exactly, like have the kids have a hard on because you're sleeping in your underwear too, like you're not there's no pajamas you sleep in, you sleep in
Right,
your underwear, and like you're standing there at it, like, and there's nothing you could do, it's just like okay, whatever, like,
right,
like, and if you have one, you have one, you just got to stand there and like we never thought, at least for me, I can't speak for everyone there. I never thought anything sexual about it. I never thought that, there might be a staff member at the front of the dorm enjoying this right now, or like, or something like that. Thank God I never experienced any of that stuff there. I
right.
heard stories after I left. Even the dorm that I oversaw with that, that when I was a staff member,
Yeah.
I found out even after I left that like one of the some I don't know if this was happening when I was there. I hope it wasn't, but there was one kid that was like kind of authority, like, he had a authoritative position within the dorm. I
Right.
guess at night he was molesting this kid that had like, but this other kid had issues. He had seizures. He had all these other issues, and this other kid was like molesting him. And like, I didn't know. I never knew this happened until I left. And someone's like, "Oh yeah, someone, I won't say names, but they're like, oh yeah, blah blah," and like, because like I guess he tried to get into a Facebook group that we're all in of like old Agape students, and
Right.
everyone was like, "Get the fuck out of here, you fucking!" And I'm like, "What? Why are you guys mad at this guy?" And like, dude, he used to this with this kid, and this, and da da da. I'm like, what? Like, I was so far removed from all that crap that happened, but then I hear all these stories afterwards. It's like, um,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
I've usually said that a lot of the people that talk most about being anti-gay are pretty much gay themselves.
yeah,
And I know, I don't know who, but I know 8 times out of 10, there's a closeted homosexual in there somewhere.
right. Well,
You
especially
know,
if you, especially in those situations, if you are, what's word siphoning someone's like sexual growth. You know, when
yeah,
you're in school, like you're in a normal public school, you're around the opposite sex, you get to experience those emotions, those feelings, those
sure.
everything, those attractions. When that's stifled, but that's a natural human thing
Oh
to
yeah,
just like to go through. When you stifle that, and you put like I don't care who you are, you put a bunch of boys or whatever like in a room and you keep them there for 10, 20 years like that with no other stimulant. We're humans, we seek stimulant, like that's what we do, like it's
yeah.
bound to happen. And um yeah, there's kids that like I know came out of there like, okay, but that's the thing, if you were there and you were willingly like you came out and said you're gay, like I'm into boys, like I'm into men, like and like you were
Yeah.
serious about it. um they sent one kid home. Like he was there and like they basically sent him back home because he either played it off really well or he really was, and they would not have that. Nope.
Well, that would have been a good way to get out of there if you didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I know.
Just tell them you're gay. I love men, and boom, you're gone.
But they I don't know how they. That's the thing, is I don't know how they confirmed it. That's why I'm
Yeah.
not sure how they confirmed it. I don't know if something happened. Maybe he made out with the kid or something. But whatever happened, like they had him leave. And I know
Yeah.
other kids would try to do stuff to get sent out of there, like pretend like they were injured or pretend like they had a problem or whatever. But the
Right.
staff saw through it all. But um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. But all that being said, like the after effects of leaving that school and like all these years later, like I can't tell you how many of my friends from that school have killed themselves, committed suicide. All these years later, we're adults now with kids and families and all this other stuff, and still like I talk to guys and we're still suffering from the same fear of being in a being thrown back at that school, or what we went through there. That like I had a friend not too long ago. He literally married with kids, took his own life because I don't know everything that was happening, but I know it stems from it's what it go all the stuff that gets put in our head from going through the institution, and these questioning everything. What's right, what's wrong, what's happiness, where am I loved? No one
Yeah.
loves me. Like when I left that boarding school, I was convinced, up until recently in life, I was convinced that no one loves me and no one's ever going to love me. That's the stuff that they would say there, like no one
Yeah.
loves you. That's why you're here. You're because your parents don't love you. They don't want anything to do with you. That's why, like, they would say these things to you as a kid, and you start to believe them. And then when you get out of there, you think no one, like, you just go on believing this the rest of your life. And sadly, some of these guys just end up taking their lives because they can't cope with it.
Yeah.
It's fucking terrible.
But your imaginary friend loves you.
Yes.
God loves you.
Well, but see, that's the thing. Like, not getting too deep into the whole religious thing, but like they get you to rely on this fictional source of dopamine, right? You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
seriously, like so there's this invisible being that is going to love me as much as I want him, allow him to, so I can get my love from God, right? Like I can get my love from God, and I get as much love from God as I want. And if depending on if God loves me or not is really my own brain. Did I do something today to upset God? It's all my own interpretation of what my sin is to God, and whether He's angry or not with me, or whether He's loving me or not. And so it's like you get so hooked on this source of dopamine that's invisible, that like no
Yeah.
wonder you all of a sudden you remove that and you start questioning if God exists, and like, and you're only getting your love from God, and He's the only one that truly loves you.
Yeah.
Of course, when you remove God out of the picture, you're suicidal and you don't know what to do with your life.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's sad.
yeah,
That's sad.
it really is. It really is. And teaching kids this, like it's not even adults that can make decisions for themselves. You're putting a
Yeah.
bunch of kids, hundreds and thousands of kids through a system that gets this in their heads that you're only loved by God. God's the only one that truly loves you. And if you do anything to upset him, he doesn't love you anymore. But yet, agape is the name of the school, unconditional love, right?
Right.
Right? God's unconditional love. No, like no, they teach a hateful, spiteful God that's out to get you, and that's like looking at everything you do with a microscope, and and just
Right.
waiting to punish you.
Well, see, kids are the easiest to manipulate.
Mm-hmm.
They're easily moldable. I mean, if
Yep.
you get a 10 to 15-year-old kid and you teach him about God, there's a good chance he might believe you.
Yeah.
But you get let's say us, you're 37, I'm 48.
Mm-hmm.
If some Christian was to come up to my door and start preaching, I'd be saying,
Yeah.
get away, get off my property with that shit. Get off
Yeah.
my property.
But at the same, like I've learned now in life where I don't mind having a conversation with people about it, but the problem is they don't. Their mind is so set up, or so set in their ways. Like they're trying to convert me to
Yeah.
their religion. They're not open to having a conversation about it. If when I just told you about God and dopamine and all this other stuff, if I tried telling that to a Christian, oh my gosh, they don't want to hear it.
Oh
But
yeah.
they tell you all day about their God and their this and that. So it's like I've learned to just I let people believe what you want. Even if we went on this call right now on this podcast, you're like, I'm a devout Christian. I love God. And if you said, I'd be like, good for you, man. More
Yeah.
power to you. Like, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong because that's not my goal in life. Like more power to you. If it helps you live a better life and treat your fellow human better, good for you.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, if you
Definitely.
start hating me because I'm not a Christian, and like or whatever, then that's where the problems start happening. But it's
And usually most of the time it's the Christians doing the judging.
yeah.
So it's not the non-believers. I guess I'll put it in that category.
Right.
So they're the ones wreaking the havoc, not the non-believers.
Right. And
They're
they're
the
they're
s- they're the source of the problem.
but it
So
it's the thought occurred to me a while ago, and when someone is so devout in the way that they believe and they're not willing to hear anyone else, like I remember being that way. And
yeah,
I was so gun-ho preaching the Bible up on the behind the pulpit and doing all this stuff. And if you talk to me anything like different than about what God is and about Bible and Christianity and all that stuff, if you try to convince me otherwise, I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want those ideas in my head. But truthfully,
right.
looking back at it, the reason I didn't want to hear you is because you probably could have talked me out of it. I wasn't really that devoted to it. I was brainwashed into it, and I
Yeah,
was taught to not listen to anything. I was taught to have faith into this, forsake all, I trust him, right? Like faith and into this invisible being, and like don't let anyone deter you. Anyone trying to deter you is the devil. But
you had
really,
you had you had the blinders on,
yes,
basically.
100%.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
now it's interesting now where I'm at in life, because my family's still Christian, and like they'll say, hey, we're praying for you and stuff, or we'll pray at like Thanksgiving together and stuff, like, but
You
I
just go
I'm just
along with it. You go along with
yeah,
it, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Why am I going to try to rustle their feather? Like more, I let
Yeah.
them believing their thing and doing it, So, but um,
That's how it is.
yeah,
Yeah. The I've noticed, like I said, they prey on the young and the weak-minded.
yeah,
You got people in there that are actually troubled, that have nowhere to go, that are
yep,
looking for something.
yes. They're looking for an answer.
They see the answer there, they grab a hold of it and go, "This
Yes,
is this is probably what I need."
yes. It
That just makes more converts.
yeah. It's interesting. That's kind of going off a little tangent, but I
Yeah,
find
go
the
ahead.
same similar people end up to be attracted to the MLM, multi-level marketing,
Okay.
like I'm talking about like I recruit you into the business and you recruit someone else, and then,
Okay. Yeah.
and we're all selling Tupperware or something like that, and you're, and they sell you on this vision that you're going to be a multi-millionaire selling this, like, and
Yep.
it's the same kind of like pipe dream type of thing. It's like, and it attracts a lot of the same kind of people that throw themselves into this make these emotional decisions and throw themselves into something that it's going to be, this hope of reward. It's just like heaven. You just hope that you're going to do all these good deeds and end up in
Sure.
heaven, the golden mansion and streets of gold and
Sea of glass. Yes.
yeah, yes, exactly. And you're right. They prey on them out there, and if any of those people are listening to this, oh, they're gonna be so upset. They're gonna think that
Oh,
we're
yeah.
blasphemy and we're this and we're of the devil and this and that. Like it's crazy.
But you know what that does? It plants a seed. It makes them start to doubt. That's the way a lot of Christians were. Somebody would say something like, you would, just like with you, you
Yeah.
know, we would
Yep.
say, I don't want to hear it, but they planted that seed. So
Yeah.
now it starts to go over in your mind and you think about it and you think about it before you know it. You know what? This is bullshit.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
Yep. Yep.
So,
It's that little thought. So yeah, I
yep,
agree
it's
with you.
that little thought. Yep.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have done it. A lot of people don't. A lot of people are still, some people I know are still in that religion and they
Yeah.
will not leave. And that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't begrudge them at all.
Right.
You know, if you want to be a Baptist, be a Baptist. I'll still be your friend, but just
Right.
don't push that shit off on me. That's
and
all.
and don't go recruiting a bunch of parents to send their kids to you to have you help their kids, and like helping these kids, the way that you're helping them is just you're almost causing as much harm as what the kids were doing before. You're completely
Right.
brainwashing them into this way of being and thinking and everything, and you think you're doing the Lord's work, but really, like, I, I'm I remember being at that boarding school, and like when I at one point in time I was given the permission from the staff, because I worked my way up to where they would let me go and pray. Like, I can pray at night, and
Yeah.
I'd go into the bathroom stall and like I kneel over the toilet and on my knees and praying to God and talking with God. And they thought, oh man, good for him, like he's being spiritual, like he's conversing with
Yeah.
God. That during that time, when I was the closest I think I've ever been to God was during those times, and those were the times where I was asking God to remove suicidal thoughts in my brain. I'm like, if I am so close to you, if I am so connected to you, if I am preaching, if I'm doing all these things, I'm saved, I'm everything, why am I struggling with the thought of just trying to find a way to kill myself and just end all this? If this is what the purpose of life is to be here and serving you and doing all these things and preaching
Right.
and doing the God's work, why do I have these suicidal and what is going on? Why do I want to kill myself? And I'm so unhappy. I'm so unhappy when I'm so close to God. And I would want God to answer that question. I would just sit there crying and asking God to give me some kind of insight into this. I realized that, like,
Not a peep.
nothing, not a
Nothing.
peep, nothing at
Nothing.
all. And man, it's crazy. And
Yeah.
all these years later, like, finding out the way to deal with all these issues that I thought God was the answer, and getting into a religious institution was the answer to dealing with these things. So no, you gotta fucking deal with them. You don't
Right.
go to some medicine or go to some whatever to solve it. You gotta visit these things, these abandonment issues, these not feeling loved issues, like all these things. You gotta visit them yourself and readdress them. Like I as an adult now, like, I've gone back and I used to think the reason my mom died when I was a kid is because she didn't love me, right? My family left me at the boarding school because they didn't love me. So I had this idea that I wasn't loved. But then as an
Right.
adult, I go back and I look at these situations. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I didn't say in this podcast, hey, my family left me at the boarding schools because they didn't love me. It's because they loved me and they thought they were doing what was best for me. And so now that I've address these things, I don't have suicidal thoughts. I don't sit, I get depressed like anyone does, but compared to
Yeah.
when I was like preaching and religious and all this other stuff and how I was back then, like,
Yeah.
I have so much more happiness and peace of mind now, like, now compared to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Once you get away from that grip of religion,
Mm-hmm.
things seem to get a lot better. Now,
Yep.
there are some ladies that were on the podcast that are still Christians.
Good,
That's fine.
good for
If
them.
that if
Yeah.
that's what they
Yes.
need, then that's
Right.
great. But some people, just once you break free from that, your mind is clearer. You don't
Yeah.
have all that stuff clouding it, and you're
Yeah.
able to think clearly and rationally. So,
Yeah, it's to me it's like I love analogies. It's like being at the hospital, right? And you like there's something your body naturally produces, right? Like a vitamin or something like that your body naturally produces, but you have this drip coming from the hospital. You're afraid to leave the hospital and not get that IV, that substance, but
right,
when you get away from it, you get away from the IV, you find out that your body, your body can handle it. It's just like with religion, you're tapped into this God, this religion, because you're getting something from it. It's doing something for you, and you think you can't get it anywhere else or get it without it. But
right.
you really get away from it. You realize that I am capable. I like, I am able to be okay, and I'm able to like make it on my own. Like, and I don't have to blame everything on God, whether something good happens or something bad happens, it's God's fault. If I get a raise or if I get fired, if I get a raise, praise God. But if I get fired, you know what? God must have a better thing for me. Like there's nothing that's in your
Yeah.
control,
It's like when people are getting an operation and they thank God that they got through the operation. What about the doctors? Why don't you thank the doctors? They're the ones
Yeah.
that perform the operation.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know. But I've I've
100%.
I've heard I've heard a lot of people say, when I got saved, this burden was lifted. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the opposite is true. When you get away from religion, the
Yeah.
burden is lifted. You're no
Yeah.
longer under that arm, of
Yeah.
control.
It's coming from a Christian home and then going through the IFB, the
Yeah.
high school with all that and like getting out of it and coming back to reality and like being it. It's I feel like yeah, it's crazy where I'm at right now with everything. My viewpoint on stuff and my understanding of everything is so clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I appreciate that you have that mindset too. Like that you're not like your podcast isn't to bash religion or bash
Oh
these things.
no.
It's like,
Oh no, 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 no.
I
See,
like your point.
I've like I said, I tell people, if you have bad stories about the homes, tell them. If you have great stories about the homes, tell them.
Yeah,
I want to get both sides.
yeah,
I mean, that doesn't mean that what you're saying is not the truth, but
right.
you lived, the way you lived it is the way you lived it, and the way
Yeah,
they lived it is the way they lived it.
yes,
So there's different opinions, there's different lives there.
yeah, 100%.
So
And
yeah,
you could probably talk to other kids that were there during the same time I was there, and their perception of what went on was totally different. Like
yeah,
some kids didn't have it. Like one of my good friends that I'm still friends with, when he was there with me, we were talking about this just the other day about how he had it when he got to that school. Like he was like a model student when he got there. Like no issues with the intake. He was off new kids buddy status within a few weeks. Like I think mine lasted like 2 to 3 months of me being under that kid's control. So like he had it so easy. So he was like, oh man, this isn't so bad. But then
yeah.
like most of the other kids are like, dude, this fucking sucks. Like, so yeah,
So it's different for everybody. Everybody's
yeah, it
different.
really is. And I think the more students you talk to, the more guys you talk to that went to institutions like this, and
Right.
like I said, I hope that this. I don't know why the guys. You said that like girls don't mind talking, or women that have gone through it, they don't mind
Well,
sharing. But
that's not true. There are some that have hesitated a little bit and said, "Hey, let me call you back. Let me think about it."
uh,
And then they've finally come out. So it's not
yeah,
like, "Oh, well, I'll do it," and then they do it. No, sometimes it takes a little bit.
yeah,
So they have to kind of gather the thoughts together and figure out, okay, well, is this gonna help me, or is this gonna make it
yeah.
worse? You know what I
Well,
mean?
and to your point, like it's been very therapeutic, like talking, because some stuff has popped in my mind that I didn't think about, and to your point also about like being positive, like there were staff there that felt like they were really helping the kids and they were doing what they felt was best.
Yeah.
And so, but then there was other staff there. I think now, like looking back, like besides what happened to me when I first got there, I think that one of the most like craziest things that happened was I think I was either staff or I was a student and I was on the verge of graduating. And I remember walking with one of the married staff members to go do something. It was just him and I. and we developed a friendship. He was married with kids there, and him and I were walking, and I think there had been an issue at the school where a bunch of kids were planning a riot. Like they were going to do a riot at the school, and
Okay.
word got out about it, and they ended up catching the kids, and like nothing happened, whatever, right? And I remember walking with a staff member, and we were talking about it. I'm like, so what? I was like, that's crazy. Like, what do you think like about that though? I mean, there's like 200 students and only a handful of staff members. Like, doesn't that worry you? And he's like, no, not at all. And he turns his back to me, pulls up his shirt, and there's a
Got a
gun.
gun.
He has a gun in his back of his pants. He said, he's like, if there's ever a riot at the school and it comes down between my family and a student here, I will not hesitate to take one of their lives. And he put it, and I'm like, I was scared shitless. I'm like, this guy's been, I've known him ever since I started at school as a student initially. I'm like, this guy's been carrying a gun around with him. And and at any moment, his own judgment on what he thinks a threat is to his family, he has the
Right.
ability to use this gun against a student because he feels threatened against his family. Like,
Well, when you think about it, though, he doesn't have 200 rounds.
you're right. Yeah, but I think it would only take one.
Yeah,
One,
yeah, you're right. Kind of
right,
just make the crowd disperse,
right,
basically.
yeah. But yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, he doesn't have 200, but that was the fear base, like the keeping all of us so afraid of the staff members there, you
Yeah.
know, like kept us from wanting to do something like that, rise up, or do any kind of stuff like that because we were so afraid of what would happen. But we didn't know that gun. Like, well, I can't speak for all the staff there. I just know that specific one, he had a gun with him. So that probably would have changed things too. If they would have shown, everyone would have been like, hey, your first day there, it's like, hey, all the staff carry guns, or something. That
Yeah.
probably prevent a riot too. But yeah, it's just, man, it's just crazy, dude. I'm gonna have to listen back to this and see how many times I said that. That's crazy, but
It is. Well, James, it's been great, man. I'm really glad that I did this. And we could actually probably do it again if you want. If there's anything else that you remember, you know what I mean? So,
yeah, and to that point, I think not necessarily what I went through at the boarding school. I think what's a big important to me, what happened at the school happened at the school, and I'm glad that word's getting out, and hopefully um, it deters some of these institutions from continuing to operate. But at the same
right,
time, I think having people hear this, but like that have gone through that and that are suffering in silence after going through something
oh
like
yeah,
that,
okay,
to me, that's like the big thing is getting the message out because I remember when I left the school not feeling like I had anyone to go to or anyone to turn to or anything like that. No one, because I was they do a good job of separating you, right? So
right,
like in my mind, like I was hoping of getting a positive message out there that yeah, we went through some fucked up shit, right? But
yeah,
now I'm 37, like I make over six figures. I have my day job. I have a business. I live in Orange County, Cal. Like I feel like I'm life is great right now, and it can be. It doesn't have to just because of all the stuff they told us as kids at the school and how shitty
right,
we're, terrible people. Like it doesn't have to be the truth, and like the people can get over this and they can seek help, and they can not end up killing themselves. Like that.
yeah,
When you
eh,
offer this, I was just hoping to get that message out, not necessarily just about the schools, but then
right. And
yeah,
if there's anybody out there, I'll let everybody that's listening. If you're
yeah,
anybody out there that's went to this home or any other boy's home, and you want to tell your story, just the numbers on the top of the channel page,
yeah,
and just give me a text,
definitely,
and we will we'll set up an interview for you.
yeah.
Now, you said that you live, Orange County, six figures, all that kind of stuff. That's great. And you know what? It wasn't God that did it. It was you.
No,
It was
100%.
you.
Yeah, it was me getting over all that shit, getting through it, and like getting out of it and clearing my head. And like, there's a lot more to it than that. But you're right.
Right.
Like, I mean, I don't go to church. I'm not associated to any kind of religion. I don't pray.
Yeah.
I don't read Bibles. I don't. I just
Well,
work my ass off and
James, you could probably make more than six figures if you just opened up a church. You can get that tax-free Sunday money.
oh my gosh. Right.
You know, you get paid. You get paid to lie to people. I mean,
Right.
what better job is there?
I know it's and
You
to
know?
give them this false sense of hope and just like literally putting it's
Yeah.
like the carrot in front of the horse, right? And just like
Right.
leading them along, and oh my gosh, it's so crazy. Like
It's just,
yeah,
the
coming
world.
from being a preacher to where I'm at now, like
Yeah. But the thing is, you're earning it honestly. That's what it
yeah,
is. You know.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. You're not having to lie to people to get cash.
No,
Because the only nation that these churches know is donation. That's it. You know, that's their thing.
yeah,
That's the only nation they believe in. Donation.
yeah. It's I mean, and to each their own. Like these pastors have made it so they can have these very successful businesses that they run that they disguise as churches, and they're making money, and they're
Yeah,
and sure they're probably helping people too. They I'm sure there's
sure.
people that were on drugs and alcohol ruining their lives, and they found God and all this other stuff. And like mind you all that stuff. I don't mean to hate on that they did, but at the same time, like the manipulation and the lying and the scaring people, with this fear of hell and all that other crap. Like
Yeah, that's mental abuse, if you ask me.
it really is. And then
Yeah,
people go there every week and pay money to go sit through that, like that. I just don't get it. I don't get
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's a damn good living if
Yeah.
you're willing if you don't have a conscience. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's
100%.
a damn good living.
Yeah.
So, but James, thanks for being on the show, man. I appreciate it. Like I said, we could probably talk more about this. Just you know, you,
Yeah.
if you want to think a little more about some of the stuff that's happened, we can do this again, man. You know?
I'm totally if whatever you feel like your listeners would benefit from hearing as far as like if anything related to me, I'm totally open to doing that. Like I'm I'm all on board for supporting this cause right now that's going
Right.
to like because it needs to get out there. The word needs to get out there with all this stuff, so.
Now you said there's a Facebook group.
Well, it was for it's called Agape Homies. So
It's a private group, I'm sure.
right, it's a private group, and we monitor who comes in because we don't want anyone coming in there and just causing a ruckus. But
Right.
it is a group for if you're from Agape and you don't know where to turn to, where to get support or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, it's called Agape Homies on Facebook, and just submit a request to join the group, and they might ask you some questions because we
Sure.
also don't we don't want a bunch of like ex staff members or something like that going in there and causing a ruckus with the kids, or if you're in that group and you're causing any kind of drama, like they'll kick you out in a heartbeat because it's all
Yeah.
about trying to support each other and be there for each other. So, but yeah, it does exist.
Well, that's great. Like I said, if you were there at the Agape, go on Facebook. Is there just facebook.com/Agape Boys Ranch or something or?
And I think if you just search Agape Homies, Agape Homies, Agape Homies, it should pop up, So
Okay.
yeah,
All
I'm not
right.
sure what but then again, I don't even think I don't think I'm an admin of that, so
Right. Right.
I hope
But
admins
but
can't be saying it, but
well, I
yeah,
mean, if anybody is part of that, Agape, and they've been there, and they truly need some support, and people who have that were there and kind of went through what they went through, it'd be nice to, to
yeah,
have that support, to have that group there. So, I mean, yeah, just go to Facebook and
yeah,
check it out. I mean, I'm sure you would be able to find it.
yeah. It's pretty
So,
easy to find, and just send a
yeah.
request. And
The thing
yeah,
is, like, I got kicked out of the Rebecca group because I knew some people there, and they wanted to come on the podcast and go through this, and of
yeah.
course the lady who was doing the monitoring or whatever they do, the group
Oh, the ad,
monitor.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, she man, she really tore into me, man. She set up a post saying that I'm trying to get dirt on roll off, and I don't care about these girls. I'm just doing it just to. I'm like, oh, I I
What do
was
you?
there. I was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. What that's the thing that like baffles me with this. Like, what do we get out of this? Like, besides you and I talking and getting the story out there, like they like to paint us as these diabolical people that have this mastermind thing that we're trying to do, or we're being paid by somebody, or the devil's and something to just devalue what we're talking about and us as a person. But like, you're getting nothing out of this. It's not like I paid you to be on this podcast, or you're making money off a sponsor from this. Like, this is time out of both of our Sundays where we can be spending time with our family to talk about this, and just because we want to do something good in this world, like that. But
I know.
It's bound to happen, right? It's bound to get.
Oh yeah, she threatened with a lawsuit, and I was like, well, do your worst. And she never. It was just a threat. That's okay. She was still part of the Baptist church. That's the thing.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those things.
Anything that goes against it, like, but really, like, there's nothing that can happen with this. Like, us talking. Like, I'm literally sharing factual stories about what happened there, and like not using names besides the school's name, really, right? Like, but you're right.
Well, but I could honestly say though that the devil has all the best music.
Dude, I know. Well, I DJ. Like, I'm like, when I found music, I really fell in love with music, and it carried me through like so many hard times, so many difficult. And like, I DJ now. I DJ weddings, corporate events. Like, been a DJ for over 10 years now professionally. And like, you're right. Like, music is like, to me, that's the universal language that anyone can like listen to the song no matter what they speak and feel it and have a good.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, you're right. It's the devil. Anything with the beat.
That's right. All right, James. Hey, hold on there for a second. Let me go ahead and end the podcast. I want to talk to you a little bit more. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. So everybody, thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. And like I said, if you have any questions or anything, the number is on the top of the channel page. Go on Facebook. If you've been to the Agape and try and get into that, it's a private group. I'm sure they'll have to ask you questions like James said. So for the Hammer Podcast, I'm Jason. You take care of yourself and you take care of each other. All right. We'll see you. Thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. This is when Amanda reached out to me initially, about it, I was like, sure, like I don't mind talking, but it's yeah. So I'm it's just with everything happening with this right now, this major movement around it and everyone finally speaking up about it.
Yeah.
It's I was watching a video just earlier today of someone they're about my age. They had gone to a girls' school, and someone asked them, like, why are you finally saying something all these years later, all this time later? Why are you finally saying something? And she was just like, because, like, there's finally people talking about it. Like, no, when we got out of the schools, no, there weren't channels to talk about this kind of stuff, and there was no support for it. Nothing. You just kind of got out and had to deal with it. So it's awesome to finally be able to say something about it, and it's very therapeutic. So I appreciate you taking the time to put this together and do all this as well. It means a lot.
When I went to the school back, and this was 1982, there was no internet. There was no way of communicating except maybe by phone.
Right.
So now with the age of the internet, everything's coming out. People are starting, and a lot of people were not. They didn't feel safe as far as talking about it, because they were afraid there might be repercussions from the church or whatever, or lawsuits or something like that.
100%. Yes. Yeah, I feel you on that. So it's awesome just seeing all the people talk about it now. It's kind of sad. It's exciting and sad, to be honest with you, because I thought we were us boys that went to that school. I thought we were a small niche. Right. And I'm finding out we are not a small niche. There are hundreds, thousands of people that have been affected by these people, like by these different schools, and that it was comforting. But then the more it hit me, I was really sad to realize that so many people had gone through that. So,
right.
But yeah.
Well, I tell you though, just because I wasn't at the boys' home, doesn't mean I didn't get my ass paddled by those Nimrods. We got it just as bad. So
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know it's a for I know it's supposed to be talking, but I don't
Right.
know your background like with this. So I'm if you don't
Oh,
mind, curious if you don't mind.
yeah, yeah, sure. My dad was a independent fundamental Baptist, okay?
Oh,
And we lived in Corpus Christi, Texas, and
okay.
this is where it all began. Lester Roloff. It all began with Lester Roloff. He started the homes. It was the Rebecca home for girls, the Lighthouse, and the
Yep.
Anchor home for boys, and then it
Okay.
was the Bethesda home.
I've heard of that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all these homes, the main person behind it is Lester Roloff. Okay.
Right.
Now, like I said, I didn't go to the home for troubled teens. I was just they also had a school, an elementary school that
Mm-hmm.
they had on the grounds. Okay, so it was a two-story building. The elementary school was on the first floor, and the Rebecca home, the school for them was on the second floor. So whenever we were outside, they were inside, and vice
Mm-hmm.
versa. So we
Yeah.
never got a chance to see any of them. It was more like they kept us away from what was going on.
Yeah.
But I heard a lot of stories. I heard rumors. You know,
Yeah.
and it turns out the rumors were true. But
Yeah.
it took all this time for some of these girls to finally come out and say it.
Yeah.
And the problem is, if there was any type of allegation like rape or
Right.
sexual molestation or whatever, the statute of limitations is over.
Yes.
They can't do anything about it. That's the only problem with
Right.
coming out now.
Right. Nothing legally can happen now, but but at least they're still saying something. Thank God, because that stuff is still happening. I'm
Right.
sure. But now that's hopefully that's encouraging the people, the kids that are going through it now, to say something now.
Yes.
But yeah, but that's
And
interesting.
the thing is, the place you went to, the Agape Boys Ranch,
Hmm.
it's still in operation. They still have their website up.
Yeah.
I was looking at their website today, and I mean, I don't know if they're still having underage kids there. They probably are,
Oh
but
yeah.
I know that the roll-off homes, they shut down the Anchor home, the Lighthouse, and the Rebecca home. But now they have the roll-off men's home, which is basically for adults. They're not dealing with kids anymore.
Interesting.
So now they're dealing with adults. And it used to be that roll-off didn't charge a dime. He relied on donors and anybody who would donate to him.
Right.
Now they're requiring $542 for the application fee, $350 a month. $50 of that goes to your personal account, which they keep. Okay, so you can't have any money with you.
Yeah.
Then, if you decide to leave, it's a 9-month program. If you decide to leave early,
Hmm.
they keep your money. You get no money. They consider it a gift. In other words, they're just doing it for the money. It's downright theft, is what it
That's
is.
interesting.
Because I'm sure
That's
I'm sure they try to hound you and hound you to get you pissed off to say, you know what, I'm leaving. Oh,
right.
great. Well, we keep your money then.
Right.
you
Right.
know.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah, because it used to be that roll off. Man, that guy was. I mean, he was bringing in just from donations alone and from sponsors and everything about two and a half million dollars a year.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's the thing about this, like I'm getting out of the school and like realizing stuff. Like it to me, it's like it's more of a business than it
Oh
is
yeah.
like a religious thing or a trying to really help people. It's exactly it's a business. It's like it's religious
Yeah.
institution. You get to write off everything. You got to pay. Like it's insane.
Well, see, Roloff had problems with the state because the state wanted to close the homes down.
Hmm.
Okay, and he said that the only person that he um, represented was God. God was his boss, basically. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't answer to you. I answer to God. But
Right.
his problem was that he registered his enterprise as a 501c3. That's what got him.
So he had to do something. Like
So he had to
yeah,
get a license.
yeah,
If he was a non 501c3,
right,
then there would have been no problems. But
right,
he registered under a 501c3, which is tax exempt, you know.
right.
So the state can come in.
That's
So
so interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
I think a lot of these schools have learned their lesson from that. That's how they're able to keep. Because I remember I remember being at the school and separation of church and state, and like once you get embedded into the doctrine there and like the mindset,
right.
the idea of keeping the government out and everything, like they sell you on that whole idea, and you're just like, yeah, of course, like this is God's doing, this is God's work. We don't want the government in here. We don't, and you believe that, but then when you get out of it and you look back at it, you're like, okay, no, maybe you need the government in there to like regulate these things and kind of,
Yes, because if you don't, they can get away with just about anything, and that's been proven. So,
yeah,
and of course, 9 times out of 10, you talk to anybody who's been to any boys' home that's affiliated with the Baptists, and
yeah,
you mention Lester Roloff, you mention that name, they're going to know exactly who you're talking about.
yeah.
He had his hoofs in everything.
Well, I told you that one of the dorms there is called the roll-off dorm. Like
Yeah.
they have different names for that Hiles dorm, roll-off dorm.
Oh, you mean Jack Hiles? Yeah, I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
Jack
yeah, yeah.
Hiles.
They just use the last name. So it's Hiles dorm. Yeah, Jack Hiles dorm. Um, there's Hiles dorm, Bucky Tucker dorm, roll-off dorm, Rice dorm, and I think it was Hudson dorm
Okay.
or something like that. But yeah, yeah, named after these people, So you're right, like they were definitely an influence on what they were doing there.
Oh, definitely. I mean, they may not have met him personally, but they were definitely influenced by his teachings and his ideas.
Yeah.
So, because he died in '82 in a plane crash,
Wow.
and
So
that,
it's yeah.
yeah, and that's when his minions took over, and
Right.
that's actually, well, that's when it started getting worse, the abuse, because it did happen in the '70s. I interviewed a lady named Lita who was there at the Rebecca home, and man, she's still traumatized. I mean, even to now, she can't go outside. She can't be around people. She's just mentally just screwed up, you
It,
know.
yeah.
And the roll off home did it to her,
Yeah.
So
Man,
I
that's crazy.
mean, 3 minutes into the interview, she just started bawling. I'm like, wow, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well, I can imagine more people you talk to about this too. Like you're gonna have a mixture of emotions. Like I've gotten really good about. I've done a lot, like a lot of personal development work is what they refer to as. Where I've revisited a lot of things that have happened in my life and given it a different meaning, if that makes sense.
right,
And
yeah,
and
yeah,
not letting my past define who I am today. So like, but that's was a lot of work, and even still, I'm still have a lot of stuff to work on too. But um,
right,
yeah, the
okay,
damage that's done by those places is just it's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Most of it's mental. Some of it's sexual. I mean,
right,
it ain't just the girls. I mean, I heard some stuff about the Lighthouse and the Anchor where the boys were being sexually abused as well.
yeah,
So, but I can't confirm that. That's just what I heard. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
but then again, it's closed. Everybody who was involved in it is dead.
yep,
So,
yeah,
because what
exactly.
what's a funny story, kind of a irony if you think about it. Um, Roloff's right hand guy was named Wiley Cameron. Did you ever heard of that guy?
I don't think
Okay.
so.
After Roloff died, Wiley Cameron took over. Okay. And of course, they got this. If you go to, well, you don't have to, but there's a website, roloff.org, and they got his sermons playing 24 hours a day. I mean, it's
Wow.
just ridiculous. But Wiley Cameron, like I said, became pastor, and he became he became head over the homes,
Right.
and he gave this sermon called "A Man on Fire." Okay, that was the title of it, and he was talking about the Lazarus and the rich man. You remember that story?
Yes. Yep.
Where the rich man was in hell and he was looking up and Lazarus was in Abraham's bosom and all that stuff. Well, and I think it was 2000, and I'm going to do a video about it, but I think it was 2005 or six. He was in this room welding, and I guess the welder arced against his ring and caught him on fire. So he was burned on like 80 or 90% of his body.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and he was in an induced coma for 2 weeks, and finally, because he wouldn't take morphine, he refused morphine. And finally, they just induced the coma, and 2 weeks later, they pulled the plug. I always knew his wife was going to be the death of him, man, because it arced on his wedding ring.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah. So preaching about a man on fire and then dying,
right?
By being on fire, that's pretty ironic.
That's very ironic. Yeah. Man.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a new guy in there now. His name is E.S. Marshall. I don't know him. I don't know anything about him. So, and they're keeping it pretty much a low key right now. So they're just not focusing on children. They're just mainly adults, and the state's, staying away from them, basically.
Right. And that,
because adults can make their own decisions. You know what I mean? It's not like kids that are forced to go there.
But even knowing that as an adult, sorry, I'm going to turn up my air conditioning a little bit. It's getting a little warm in here. Even as an adult, like knowing that like that exists still. Like I have dreams as an adult. I'm a 37-year-old man, right? So I still have dreams that even when I first got to school, I had these dreams, but it's the same recurring dream that my family got together again, like they did all those years ago, and they decided, like I'm screwing up in life, and I wake up at the boarding school, and I'm just stuck there, and I cannot leave the boarding school. Like I'm stuck there. Like there's no, because you can't, they won't let you run off, and there's no one you can go to for help whatsoever for anything. And that gut-wrenching, helpless feeling, like I have that as an adult waking up with that dream. So knowing that still exists, that's like a nightmare to know that. I mean, granted, it sounds like you can come and go as you want, but this sounds terrible.